Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we bring together the most phenomenal leaders from across the globe and they share their journey. And today we have a good friend of mine, Dr. Corrie Block, who's a world class coach. His travel schedule it will probably give you a headache if you had to live and walk through that or fly through that from a global perspective. So Dr. Block is a globally recognized executive coach, business strategist, and best-selling author. He does one book a year. With over 30 years experience, he has coached CEO, C-suite leaders and entrepreneurs in more than 30 countries. His travel schedule, which he told me, is going to cover 5 countries over the next 6 weeks, I think. He helps them achieve extraordinary performance transformation. He's known as the #1 executive coach in the UAE, Dubai, and all of that. He's worked with iconic brands as Microsoft, PepsiCo, World Bank, UN, and on and on and on. But we don't have time to go through all of it. So with that, I'll say, hey, man, how you doing?
Really good, really good. Like listening to the intro, it really is, it's humbling and it's also a little bit weird because it's just my life. But I know, like, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, it's a week long. It's horrible. Yes. But don't be impressed with the academic stuff. That's my hobby, right? I don't play golf. I don't watch football. I read. I write journal articles. My wife has forbidden me from doing a third doctorate degree, so I just write a book every year. But that's because of my learning addiction. That's it. I feel intensely curious about everything, and I just have to know it.
4 postgraduate degrees is a lot.
It's more than a hobby.
So maybe your wife is on the set. No more. Just sit and breathe is what I like to say. So normally we start that show, and you were a past guest years ago, but I wanted to bring you back on because you're doing such exciting things with coaching across the globe.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Kind of a recap to kind of bring it all into fruition. Amazing career journey. How did all this start? I mean, coming out of university, I'm going to do 4 postgraduate degrees. I'm going to travel all over the world. I'm going to become a world-class coach. Was that the plan?
No, it wasn't the plan, actually. And I dropped out of university, so I don't even have an undergraduate degree. I skipped that. And yeah, I moved to Estonia when I was 23, started 5 organizations there, exited those, and moved to Yemen. And was there for 5 years with my family, then moved to Dubai, started a couple of other companies, exited those, and since 2015 kind of earned the right to do whatever I want, which is learn things. I like learning things and I like coaching people. Like those are the 2 things that give me the most amount of life. So that's a very, very quick journey from serial entrepreneur through strategy consultant to independent executive coach. But yeah, now I'm very honored actually to be in the offices of some of the most powerful executives in the world. And it's such a privilege to work with incredibly talented Olympic level people.
Mm. You and I were on the stage in Bahrain years ago, and I think I was the opening keynote. And normally when someone comes up to speak and you've gone through your piece, I'm making notes, I'm doing other things on my phone. You got up and wowed the audience. I said, you know what, let me put the phone down and let me learn from this gentleman here because it was just absolutely amazing in walking through that.
Thanks. I actually don't remember what it was I spoke on. Do you remember the topic?
You know what? I remember the slides. You told the slide situation. The slides weren't quite there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's right. So the AV people couldn't find they couldn't find the file. I'd emailed the file. I don't know if I even to this day, I don't know if I sent it to the wrong email address or whatever, but my PowerPoint slides weren't there. And so I'm staring out at this audience and I'm like, guys, please just, I need technology to work for me right now because the topic was Spartan CEO. It was the 6 pillars of executive performance. And there's a lot of science in there. There's a lot of story, but it's all very science backed. And there's like statistics and things that, you need to know. And there's a lot of visuals. And so it would be helpful to have my slide deck, but it wasn't there. And finally, like after about 3 or 4 minutes, I was like, you know what, forget it. And I looked at the audience and I was like, if I don't know my material, then I don't deserve to be on this stage. So here it is, a cappella. And then we just went off with it. But yeah, I delivered the whole thing, stats and all. It's because it's here, right? But because of my learning addiction, okay, all of what I write is my own. It's my original research, and so it's all just here anyway.
Yeah, but it caused me to put my phone down. And I said, "Wow," because I wanted to see how you would react in that space. And one other gentleman did the same thing, and I think he's listening today, Ashok Gopal, who's a very dear friend of mine in Dubai, and he was the head of, I think, Mashreq Bank. And the same thing happened to him, and he was able to flip it, and he just walked through, and it did the same thing. And I said, how many people are presenting? If all of your slides just go away, all of your notes go away, could you ad-lib it? Where did that come from? Where did that ability come from? Because I'm sure maybe early in life, you probably would not have been able to do that.
No, the ability comes from knowing the material. Like I don't learn to talk. I learn because I want to know, like I actually need to know the material. See, especially when I'm coaching, right? On stage is one thing, but coaching is another thing. When I'm walking into a CEO's office, I'm walking in with a warehouse of tools. Okay, I don't know what problem it is that they're trying to solve. I'm not quite sure. It might be mindset, it might be skill set. If it's mindset, it might be imposter syndrome or negotiation or psychology of leadership. Like there's so many sets of tools that I have to have at my disposal, and I have to actually have them.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't just have the degree. I have to have the material here in order to add value at that time.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier exit. You mentioned exits twice. So you tried something, you said, I'm done with this, I'm moving to something else. Was there any mental loops that you went through when you were closing out something and starting something else? Because you talked through 4 to 5 exits.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me put it this way. What happens when you exit? You tried something, you maxed it out. You tried something, didn't work out. What's the exit mentality?
Oh no, I've had 5 successful exits, and I've also had 2 like horrible catastrophes, like buried the company in the ground kind of catastrophes. I've also been bankrupt, so I've crossed the $1 million mark a couple of times in my life. It's not that hard, and bankruptcy is not fatal, so it just made me stronger. But my first exit was really challenging. I had an education organization. It was really hard to let go, and it was a bit like letting your kids go to college when they move out. I've got older kids, mine are 24 and 20. They're both out. And watching them move out is like, oh, right. And it's the same when you exit your first company, you have that kind of, but it's mine, and I don't know if I'm ready to let somebody else lead this company because they're going to bring their culture and they're going to bring their priorities and everything to it. But that's just part of the journey because I don't want to die or retire in that company. I want to go start a new one. I want to start another one. Like my sense of curiosity is leading me in different directions. So there's that tension, especially with the first one where I really don't want to let go, but I really need to let go in order to follow my own passion.
Yeah, it was time. How do you stay grounded doing all of those transitions? Who was your sounding board? Was there a sounding board? Who was your coach through this?
My wife is my sounding board. Best friend, lover, drinking buddy, all of it, right? So she hears everything, and she's great. She's also highly intelligent, and she's a senior executive with an airline here. She's probably a bigger deal than I am, actually. And so she's been amazing. She's such an incredible sounding board for me. But in terms of mentors, like I've also got people in the market here. And now global gurus like Stephen M.R. Covey, who's become a friend over the last couple of years. And I don't want to name drop, but this guy was my guru in 2006 when he wrote Speed of Trust. That changed everything for me.
Oh, wow.
It made so much sense to me. I made a significant lifestyle change and decided to do all of my business based on trust. So I would avoid contract at all costs, and I would just deliver. I would deliver until they begged me for an invoice. Right. That's how I would. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And yes, you expose yourself to risk, but I'll tell you what, I've made way more money on trust than I ever lost on it. So
I've got to read that book tonight.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's 2006. And then so I was kind of fanboying when he came to Dubai a few years ago, right? Maybe 5-6 years ago. And he's there, and I'm watching. I'm sitting in the crowd, and I'm watching. Oh, it's Stephen Covey. And then I got to picture him with my book, and I'm with his book, and and that's when he wrote Trust and Inspire, which is also an incredible, simple combination for executive strategy. It's brilliant. Trust and Inspire is incredible. And from that, I learned how to do my CEO job description. So when I'm coaching a CEO, I'm like, okay, this is day one. From day one, you have a new job description. Your job, okay, is to hire slow, fire fast, clarify vision, and stay out of the way. That's it. Those are the only things you get to do now with me as your coach. And you're going to become an expert at those things. And he's like, so Stephen's like, oh, it was really good to hear that that he inspired me. And we go to lunch. We go to lunch, and I'm like, and I was doing research at the time for one of my books, Love at Work. And he's my guru on trust, right? So, and I had him there for lunch, and I'm like, hey, listen, I need your help with something. He says, yeah, go ahead. I said, you're the number one voice in the world on trust in organizations for me. Number one. And he's like, oh, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I was like, okay, so, but where is your book on the highest form of trust? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, the highest form of trust, where there's an unquestioned default to trust, the highest form of trust in psychology, we call that love. Love is an unquestioned default to trust. And he's like, right. And so it occurred to me. So he said, well, you're going to have to write it. And I ended up doing it, right? But not before I had conversations with like Amy Edmondson, who's my guru on all things psychological safety, and Marshall Goldsmith, and a number of others who've written. And I read everything by Simon Sinek. Okay, he's my guru on empathy.
Yeah,
but
he's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, but where is his book on the highest form of empathy, which is also love?
Yeah.
Okay, where's Amy Edmondson's book on the highest form of psychological safety, which is also love? And so it occurred to me that while I'm reading all of these leadership books, right, we're talking about empathy and shared values and discretionary efforts, psychological safety and belonging on teams, and all the highest form of all of those things is love. We have a word for that, and we refuse to use it in the office. And that just seemed really weird to me. So I wrote the book on that.
And the name of that book was?
Oh, Love at Work. It's here.
Love at Work. Okay. I thought that was the one you were talking about. Yeah. So yeah, that was
That's
cool.
The one.
So do you find a difference between leaders, the newer leaders? I'm talking about newer leaders, someone just moving into the role, maybe a different DNA age set versus the older leaders. I have a speech coming up with a group of CHROs. And what I find is that the older interpretation of HR is totally different from the people that I deal with lots of times doing the work.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've picked up as far as the DNA of the C-suite?
Yeah, 100%. But I'm not going to say it's generational. I'm going to say it has to do with neuroplasticity. So
that's a big word. I have 1 degree.
So I'm a board certified master neuroplastician and performance neuroscience coach. And so everything that I do, whether it's writing or coaching or training, speaking, everything is founded in evolutionary psychology and neuroscience. So when I'm looking at this pattern, like you said, there's older traditional leaders and the way that they behave, and then there's these younger leaders that are more malleable in the way that they behave. But actually, I've found that there are some older leaders that behave like these young leaders, and I'm wondering what the difference is. And the difference is actually a lot simpler than you think. Heuristics. It's heuristic half-life. So what happens is a leader in an organization starts off in their 20s. They're making successful decisions. The decisions they make get them hired. They get them promoted. They get them more successful jobs, better titles, until they become in the C-suite, right? In their mid-40s or maybe 50s, they get to the C-suite. But now they've got a pattern of 20 years of making decisions that lead them in the direction of success, right? Those decisions and the decision-making patterns become heuristics. The heuristic is a shortcut in decision-making. But because they've used that shortcut so many times, they stop noticing that they're using it. They completely ignore that it's possible that there is a heuristic, and they're just simply behaving according to that heuristic. Well, heuristics have a half-life because the world around you changes. Yes. And what made you successful in the past might not make you successful now. And that's where I love Marshall Goldsmith, one of my other friends. His book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Now amazing
book.
and an amazing guy. Like he's incredible. He's such a good thinker, and he didn't go through the science of all of this, but the book explains everything you need to know about that. Basically, is that what made you successful in the past has a half-life. Okay, there's going to get this place where it kind of peaks, and then just from here, you're going to start becoming confused because what made you successful before isn't working anymore, but you don't know why. And then it's go down, you're here, and you're going to start aging out. But you're not aging out because you're old. You're aging out because you're not thinking.
Okay. And breaking it down that way. Yeah, because, I see, a lot of companies are struggling with work from home, work from anywhere, all those kind of things. And then when I kind of read through what someone is saying, I'll always read someone's interpretation of it. But here's my thought. I noticed that the people who have reached the top of the pyramid, they're saying, well, my career, I started here. I came into work every day. I built relationships in the organization. And that's what I think you should do. I want to take my pattern and push it onto you. Give me the scientific interpretation of that, which I have a problem with because I said, I have a daughter and she's a global director of marketing. Her thought process is totally different from mine. Walk me through the science behind it with the 5 degrees.
Well, we all have different biases and heuristics, right? We learn them from our parents. Some of them are genetic, and it's very difficult for us. I taught one of my clients this word today, actually. SVP and major multinational, and I was like, "Man, your metacognition is so good." And he was like, "I'm sorry, what?"
What?
Yeah, and I was like, "Metacognition. It is the skill of thinking about how you're thinking." Make sense? Okay. So thinking about thinking. Yeah. It's when you can when you're behaving a certain way, it's usually because you've, thought about something, you made a decision, that decision is translated into action, but we don't think about that. It's passive. Sometimes we'll think about that, but then we have this other layer where it's metacognition, where we can think about how we're thinking and then maybe rewire our brain a little bit, because everything that we do, whether it's a thought or idea, paradigm, behavior, words, language, whatever, it's all just proteins and electricity and chemistry all kind of firing together and wiring together at the same time. Whatever fires together, wires together. And then sometimes it becomes so strong that it can't possibly be pulled apart, and it's so difficult, right? But whatever fires apart, wires apart, and over a certain amount of time with enough discipline, you can think your way into thinking differently. And that's an art. That is a skill. So in every generation, there are people that are good at it, and in every generation, there are people that just don't even know it's possible.
Okay, that's a totally different construct of what I was thinking, because I made the quick assumption, and this is why it's always good to read. It's always good to have a different reference point. This was based in science, because I've always made the assumption that it was generational in looking at this kind of thing. So Peter Piccinini, who's one of our prior guests, he started on Broadway in New York in the arts, and now he's a wealth advisor for wealthy people across the globe. And he says, brilliant. I love it. The world around you changes. Awesome. Thanks, Peter, for always listening in. You talked about coming into a new client, and I'm going to use the context of you coming into a new client or me coming into a new organization, and I'm trying to understand my leader. I'm trying to understand the people that are reporting into me. What advice would you give them on each one of those approaches?
Spend way more time listening than you think is necessary. Number one. Okay. Yeah. Peter Drucker said it best. The most important ingredient in active listening is a closed mouth. Yours. The other thing is in order to get the best out of your first 90 days, you have to shut up. And it's so unnatural because you want to add value. You want to prove your value. You want to peacock your feathers around and say, look at me, look what I can do. Right. And it's not because it's not ego. You want to defend their decision for bringing you on the team. So you want to play, and you want to contribute, and you want to add, and you want to speak and speak and speak. And that's really actually a big mistake. Okay. So you go in there with your feathers blazing, speaking to people in a language that they don't understand, and you railroad all over them, and you haven't listened. And actually, the highest quality, doesn't matter what, well, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter which level. I'm going to say from senior manager up, okay? From senior manager straight to the CXO or GCXO of any major multinational I've ever worked in. The highest quality of information in the room isn't what you walked in with, because you already have that. Okay. The highest quality of information in the room is the combination of what you already have and what they haven't told you.
And trying to find out what that is.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to do that with a closed mouth and curiosity. That's the only way. So then by the more time you can spend listening, the higher quality of information you will have, which means the better quality of decisions you will make as a result. But if you're always trying to defend your competency and prove your value by keeping your mouth open and rattling off about what you think you're competent in, you're just going to railroad people. They're going to be disempowered, and you're never going to get the quality of information that you need.
I saw someone post in one of my groups the other day that they had just been promoted to this big position, and they was asking for advice from social media as to how they should. It was a closed group, and they were saying, go in and do this and lay out your vision and all these kind of things. And I said, if you just got that, you don't even understand the minutia of the organization. Take some time to listen. But the vast majority of people that commented on that had already given them a plan. And they just got in there 1 week, and right away they're going to bring in a plan that they contrived from past, and they're going to try to lay it on this organization. They're going to say, "Who is this dude? What is she talking about?"
Yeah, and it's horrible, because even if you're moving within the same industry just to a different organization, what worked over there doesn't necessarily going to work over here, right? It's a different kind of team. They play differently, so better to take a step back, study the team, study the game. Study the way this team plays and see if you can improve their level of play. Take a coaching approach, right? A coach is on the team, but off the field. So when I'm working with an executive, whether it's an individual or entire team, I consider myself a part of the team. I am on the team and I am off the field. My job isn't to play the game. My job is to study the way the game is played and to help the team play better, whether it's by coaching the captain of the team or by coaching the entire team. That's my job. And if you're starting in a new organization and you take that approach, your job, at least in the beginning, isn't to step on the field. You are on the team, but stay off the field just for a little bit. Okay? Listen, study the way that they play, and see if you can figure out see if you can find the synergies between your experience and their skill set and their expertise that allow you to bring in something that's actually going to add value. Then when you open your mouth to speak, it is surgical.
Someone on LinkedIn, it just says LinkedIn users, I don't know who it is, they said, love the speed of trust. I took your leadership course, and it said life change. So you got the stamp of approval, 20 minutes in. So that's pretty cool in looking at that. So working with leaders, do you find there's a correlation between the leader's profile coming in, okay, now I'm the CEO, and when they leave there and they go back into their personal lives, has there ever been any connection between? They said, you know what I learned from our discussions and our sessions is that maybe I can do a better job. Now, I don't know whether this was Marshall, because I know Marshall also, that the part of his coaching profile, he wanted to talk to the family. I don't know whether that was Marshall that said that. He wanted to spend some time with the wife, the kids, or whoever it is. And a lot of CEOs said, no. You got to stay just go with me. I don't want you to go to.
There's no such thing as work-life balance, especially for an executive. So that's a stupid myth. Okay. You are your job. Duh. Also, like, if you've got 40,000 employees in your care, you need to be focused. And your focus is divided when things aren't going well at home. So sometimes I get involved as well. I'm a holistic coach. And if you're having problems in your marriage, that means your company is not going to perform as well, because you're going to reach decision fatigue an hour earlier every day. You're going to come in a little more irritated. Your ears are going to be a little more closed, and that's going to prevent you from making good quality decisions. Like, yes, it is holistic. So we need to pay attention to those things. But executives that I work with, I think probably the biggest thing is just that there's misconception about coaching. They still think, a lot of leaders, especially in this area of the world, still confuse coaching with therapy. If you're broken and you need to be fixed, yes, get a therapist. That is not my job. Okay. Yeah. But if you're talented and you think you might be an Olympian, then we can talk, because that's my job. My job is to take talented executives and turn them into world-class CEOs. And I do that consistently. And I do it with ROI calculations, right? Like, my ROI spread at EAND last year was between 53x and 901x across 6 GCXO roles. And it's brilliant. Okay.
Go back and give me those numbers again.
53x
Okay.
901x across 6 roles. That was my spread. Look, I think all executive coaching should be free. Okay, absolutely free. Because if an executive coach is doing their job, they are helping the executive to improve their level of play in their executive role, which means executive performance is going to go up, their KPIs are going to go up, and then that cascades down, right? If they're better, if they're more trusting, collaborative, if they understand the psychology of leadership better, if they're more influential, if they're more inspiring, if they're more clear on strategy, if they're more clear on decision making, then everything sort of cascades, right? Performance goes up, productivity goes up, and then profit is a byproduct of all of those things. And those are calculable influences. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think all executive coaching should be absolutely free. Certainly mine is, and I can prove it. And I think every executive coach should be able to prove it. It's the same in the Olympics. You know, an athlete's performance is a reflection of the CEO or of the coach's expertise. And if the athlete isn't performing better, then they change their coach. Right. So when a high performing executive wants to figure out what they're actually capable of, that's when they're going to call a coach.
You know, that statement you just made reminded me of James Lafferty, who was the former CEO.
Oh, I know Jim. Yeah. Jim and I are friends.
Very dear friend. Was a former Olympic coach. Yeah.
Yes. He was brilliant.
Yes.
I really love.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I really love Jim.
Yeah, well, you know, he exited the CEO's role, and now he does conferences, workshops, those kind of things. And he said it was the best thing ever to try to pull away from the stress of that room upstairs and doing what he really loved and started as a young person, 24, 25 years old, being a coach, Olympic coach. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, look, I think there's a good deal of misconception about what executive coaching is. Okay. And I think probably that's because there's a good deal of misconception about what coaching is. Every Olympic athlete in the world has a coach, right? But no Olympic athlete or no Olympic coach is asking the athlete, well, what exercises do you think you should try today? And what sort of insights have you gained from the exercises that you have already tried? Like that, it's stupid. It's stupid. An Olympic level coach can never play the game as well as their athlete can. That's not my job. Okay. Yeah. But an Olympic level coach can increase the athlete's level of play from gold medal to world record. That is an Olympic level coach. That is my level of play. Okay. And in order to do that, you have to stop asking questions and you have to start adding value. And I think that's where the big misconception is. If we have an army of coaches trained by organizations that say your only job is to ask questions that lead them to their level of insight until they can figure out that all the information they need has been inside them the whole time, that is bullshit. And when you are in front of a person who's got the livelihoods of 40,000 families in their care, you are wasting their time. Okay. If you can't help an executive perform better as an executive, they don't earn that position. You don't get to be the CEO of a company of 40,000 employees by not being sure about yourself, thinking through all of your options and not being really, really good, really exceptional at decision making. It's the same as if you walked up to an Olympic athlete and said, you know, what exercises do you think you should do? And how do you think you can run faster? No, that is stupid. Yeah. I have to study how they play the game. I have to know the game. And I think that's where we've gone wrong. So maybe you have a CEO who says, oh, I'm going to try executive coaching, right? Well, they tell their secretary, they Google 3 executive coaches, bring them in, and then maybe they choose one, and then 2 hours goes by and they've just been asking questions the whole time. The CEO goes, actually, I don't think this is for me. And they are right. Mm-hmm. It is not for them because they've not actually found a coach capable of coaching them at their level of play.
So what is the key? What is the key connector for that? If a CEO is listening now and maybe struggling with trying to bring in a coach, or it doesn't have to be a CEO, it could be a mid-level executive, whoever it is, or could be an entrepreneur just starting out. What do you look for in beyond the Google search 1, 2, 3? What is that coach's role to say, okay, talk to me?
It's here.
Okay.
I released this book in February. Within 3 weeks, it was Amazon Global #1 bestseller, and I'm very proud of it. But I'm sorry that I had to write it. It irritates me that I had to write this book. And the reason I wrote it was because exactly that question, right? CEOs are like, oh, maybe I want to coach, but I don't know what I'm looking for. Well, this is what you're looking for. It's right here. So that is to tell coaches what they need to be in order to be an executive coach, because that's a niche. Okay. Just because you're a coach doesn't mean you're an executive coach. Just because you coach football doesn't mean you can coach an Olympic football team. This is not rocket science.
Yeah.
There's a level of play that you have to be qualified to get to. Make sense? And those are the qualifications. And this is why they're important. But it's spectacularly important for executives to be coached, because there's no other relationship in the world where they can actually become the highest performing versions of themselves. There's nothing off the shelf. It doesn't matter if it's Harvard, Cambridge, INSEAD, or Informa. It doesn't matter. There's nothing off the shelf that will help them. At the Olympic level, you don't send your athlete to camp. You give them a coach. Okay. And so, and I know Jim is out there somewhere going, yeah, Corey, yeah, right. But that's the way that it is. And it's the same in the business world. So if you are a CEO and you're looking for an executive coach, what you're looking for is experience, business acumen, a thirst for knowledge. Okay. And they have to have good executive coaches have to have some blend of business and psychology. So if you come from psychology, you learn business. If you come from business, you learn psychology. Okay. But the blend has to be there, because just like an Olympic coach with their Olympic athlete, it's not just skill set, it's mindset too. You need both.
Yeah, you do. You know, one of the things that's bothered me in our space, I say our space, you're at a totally different level. But here's the thought. Everybody and their mother's a coach now. They take a 6-week course and all of a sudden they're certified as a coach. And I think, this is just my interpretation, I think it cheapens what we do at whatever level we do, because it's not that easy to take a 6-week, an online session, and you got the certification here, so Ron Thomas, certified coach, and whatever it is. And I'm like, ooh, and you're going to go out and now do this thing?
Yep. Yeah. And look, it's the risk profile is huge. Okay, I'll give you, with an Olympic athlete, right? Olympic athlete has a bad day. What happens? They miss the gold. Their nation is disappointed for 10 minutes. Boo-hoo, right? But the CEO of a company with 40,000 employees, they have a bad day, and you can wipe $1 million off the bottom line. 4% drop in the stock, and then there's 100,000 investors carrying that cost. Maybe 1,000 families lose their primary source of income. Yeah, that's a risk profile. Yeah. It's funny because in Dubai, you have to go to a regulatory body to get licensed to be a physiotherapist in this city. Okay. And the risk profile of a physiotherapist, an injured leg, a bit of a limp for a lot longer than you had expected. Okay. That's small. The risk profile for an underqualified coach coaching an executive of a major multinational company. No, you can't do that. Plus, Olympic athletes are getting coached 90% of the time so that they can perform at the highest level of play 10%. For CEOs, it is completely the opposite. They are getting coached 10% of the time, if at all, and they are on the field of play at a world record pace 90% of the time. Like, that is incredible. And to say that they don't deserve or need coaching, to say that it's not profitable, to say that somehow they're going to be better without a coach, that is ridiculous. The best violin players in the world have coaches. The best dancers and artists have coaches. Okay. I think the best MMA fighters have like 8 coaches.
Yeah. MMA. Yeah. But you know what? I read one thing you mentioned earlier, a coach, you're a CEO coach, but you've never managed 40,000 people, whatever it is. But I read this the other day, and this ties into what you were saying. Yeah. They did a survey, a kind of a deep dive into coaching ability in the NFL. Yeah. The greatest coaches were average players.
Yep, absolutely. Because they were watching the play. They were watching how the game is played. Right? Absolutely.
No, go ahead, finish that thought. You're the expert.
Go ahead. Absolutely. Because they were studying the manner of play for the team. Right. They were focused on that. They were focused a little more on the collective than their own performance. And that's incredibly important for coaching, is to have that view. And to be okay. So Bill Campbell, do you know this name, Bill Campbell?
I read the book.
Yeah, the $1 trillion coach.
Coach. Yeah.
Yeah. His last major executive role before he started coaching for Google was as the global head of sales for Kodak while they were tanking. Like, it was not successful in that sense. But he had some business acumen, he had some experience, but he was also he was a football coach that went into the business world and then went back into executive coaching.
University, yeah.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is that he was the differentiator for Eric Schmidt and Larry Page, right? So Eric Schmidt, Larry Page, and Sundar Pichai, all of them had Bill Campbell as their coach, all three CEOs of Google, right? And that was the differentiator between them and Brian Pinkerton. Do you know that name?
I've heard it, but I can't relate it.
So 4 years before Google, there was a search engine called Webcrawler, which was developed by a guy named Brian Pinkerton, whose name nobody knows because Brian Pinkerton had a 4-year head start and Eric Schmidt and Larry Page had Bill Campbell.
Having that, do you look at it as a sounding board? I'm stressed. I've got 40,000 people on the floors below. Global approach. Who do I talk to? Who do I?
Oh, this is.
Maybe I don't want to share it with the rest of the executive team, but who do I get an unvarnished opinion?
Yeah, this is one of my biggest frustrations, right? Because, look, I love Simon Sinek. I do, and he's always talking about vulnerability, and leaders need to be vulnerable, and they need to be transparent. That is not helpful, Simon. It's not. Because a CEO of a large company like that, you get in front of your executive committee and you say, oh, you know what, guys, I've got a bit of imposter syndrome today. No, you can't do that because that undermines the confidence that your team needs in your leadership in order to get shit done.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can't go to the board of directors and say, oh, I'm a little insecure in myself. And I'm a little insecure in the strategy that we're pursuing for the next 3 months. No, because yes, again, it undermines the confidence that the board needs in your leadership in order to give you the authority to get shit done, okay? So you can't talk to the executive committee. You can't talk to the board of directors. What are you gonna do? Your therapist doesn't have tools for the business world, okay? And you can tell your spouse at home, but they don't want that shit at the dinner table. The kids don't need to hear your stress. Don't bring your stress home. And if they're generous enough to enjoy a glass of wine with you and listen to you, they can't help you. So you've disempowered your spouse at the same time. Executives, specifically CEOs, are completely socially isolated. And even if they know they want to talk about something that's really bugging them about their leadership or the management or the structure or the strategy or if they want to talk about something, they have no one to talk to because it is dangerous for them to do so. Okay, so I was doing a masterclass in executive coaching for the 20 CHROs of Tata Group. You know Tata Group, right? They're an Indian company, 1.2 million employees. 1.2 million. And these 1.2 million employees are represented by 20 CHROs who are all in the room. And they asked me to do, all of them were doing their ICF certification. So 3 days, get your ICF certification. And then they asked me to come in to do a masterclass specifically on executive coaching. The first thing out of my mouth was, I'm so glad you're getting your ICF certification. It does not qualify you to coach your CXOs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're like,
I was like, first of all, you're internal, right? They will lie to you. They will lie directly to your faces because you are a part of the system that they need to criticize. Okay. You're not objective. You know that they're not safe. So immediately you're disqualified because you're part of the organization. Plus you're just not qualified. They need somebody who's able to speak about the game at their level of play. And that isn't you.
That was, I'm sure that was an eye-opening at 9:05.
Right.
Wow.
And then
what is the rest of the day gonna look like?
Oh goodness. Then was 3 hours of, okay, this is what they actually need. They need someone who is external. Okay. Someone who is external to protect the confidentiality of their discussions. I talk a lot about confidentiality in the book, this one. I talk a lot about like GDPR rules and privacy rules and even data privacy when you're executive coaching, because people don't talk about that. It's massive. I'm carrying $1 billion secrets around. I know things that shouldn't be known outside of the board of directors. and I know them about major multinational companies that are based here in Dubai. Now, that is a massive risk profile. So you need someone who's qualified and competent, obviously, but also objective and with just incredible integrity
to drive it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If you can, as we begin to close out, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, starting out, we have these visions. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one day you're going to look and say, "Yeah, I did it," and then you realize that first step, and boom, everything's starting over again, exiting, trying to get back on track. What advice would it be?
My advice to my younger self: enjoy the ride.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, look, the only thing you really need to change about your mindset is don't take the game too seriously, but take the players very, very seriously. See, in all of our economic games, right, whether it's oil and gas, luxury shoes, FMCG, doesn't matter, aviation, all of these economic games, they're made up. They were made up, most of them within the last 100 years. Okay, and even the ones that extend back beyond 100 years, most of the rules in those games were made up within the last 100 years. That's not a lot. Meanwhile, so you take the game really seriously, but actually it's not sacred. We've made up the rules. We made up the games. It's all just made up. And we can change the rules if we want to. So the game's not sacred, but the players, now that's sacred, because every single employee in every single organization is the product of 10,000 iterations of a successfully improving survival and adaptation machine. That's serious. That's what we need to be. That's what we need to take seriously. And I would say, don't take the game too seriously, but definitely take the players more seriously. Okay, improve the players' level of play, and then the game will follow. Improve the team's level of play, and the game will follow. Don't worry. Don't focus on winning. Focus on your level of play, and winning is a byproduct. That's what I would tell myself.
Cool. You know, yes, last night I was looking through, and I said, I don't have that book. I have your other books, and I said, CEO, Chief Executive Coach.
This one, yeah. Just take me for coffee, and I'll give you one.
Sure.
For anybody here, any CXO in any company larger than like 500 employees, okay, free book. I don't need your money. Come and take my book.
Cool.
Okay, just take me out for coffee. We'll have a chat, and I'll help you to understand that you are an Olympic player in an Olympic game. And if you don't have a coach, whether you work with me or not, if you don't have a coach, then you are robbing yourself of your highest level of performance. You're robbing your organization of their highest productivity, and you're robbing your shareholders of their highest profits. That's not cool. Stop doing that.
For all of the C-level people we've had on this show, that's the best offer ever for the price of a cup of coffee.
Yeah, price of a cup of coffee. I'll give you the book. We'll do the lowdown. And if you work with me, I guarantee you for a fact, my coaching is absolutely net free of cost to you and your organization.
So what's next? As we close out, last question. What's next? What are you most excited about in this next iteration? Besides all of the travel you got coming up in the next week or so.
I'm really excited. I'm writing another book, which will be out in probably Q1, Q2 next year. It's called Undistractable. And it's because we don't have tools for the level of complexity that we're at. Okay, so we're kind of, and you wonder, we're in the most abundant time in all of human history. Okay, better communications and healthcare and transportation technology, better. We're living longer lives. We're living healthier lives. We can eat whenever we want. We've got Talabat now, so we even have the luxury of doom scrolling on Talabat because we can't decide which of the 4,000 things on Talabat we want to eat. Like that's abundance, and yet anxiety is going up, stress is going up, work-related stress is going up, burnout, especially among executives, is going up. And you wonder, why is that? Why is that? Why, with all of this convenience and comfort and abundance, why is burnout and stress and anxiety going up? And it's because of complexity. We don't have tools. None of our ancestors prepared us for a world with this level of complexity. We don't have any evolutionary psychological tools for this. There's nobody waving the red flag saying, that's one too many things on your task list, idiot. Like, there's no warning signs.
Yeah.
So you just wake up in the hospital having an anxiety attack and you're wondering what is going on. Well, our ancestors prepared us for a world that no longer exists, and we lack some of the tools that we need to manage this one. Yeah. So that's what my next book is about.
As my parents would always say, sometimes you just breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe, you know.
Yeah.
And Corrie, Dr. Corrie, world traveler. Let's connect and have coffee and talk next week
100%.
or week after. Thank you so
100%.
much for making time to be on the show. Thank your assistant for all the help she gave us in setting this up. And I'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Oh, and also for you and all of those of you out there that are watching, in case nobody's told you today, I love you.
My man. Thank you for closing thoughts. I needed that.
My
Okay,
pleasure.
man.
Have an amazing weekend. Cheers.
Okay, take it easy.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.